I'm Filipina.
I'm Nepali/Indian.
I am a white American.
I was born and raised in Seoul, South Korea, and I would identify myself as Asian.
The Philippines itself is so diverse. It's 7,100 islands, and people look so drastically different, but ultimately in the media, it's all boiled down to this is the standard of beauty, and it is primarily Western. A lot of the Filipinas that are portrayed in worldwide beauty, such as like the current reigning Miss Universe, Catriona Gray, her dad is half Australian, also happens to be Caucasian. So having that collate all together gives this perception that beauty is really like, you must be light-skinned. You must have these angularized, kind of idealized features that deviate from the sort of button nose, slightly rounded face that I kind of portray, that I kind of have on my own face.
I know nowadays in Western culture, like being curvy is like seen as more of the beauty standard nowadays, but like in Nepal and India, it's still more of like being skinny, like flat stomach, being tall, like long lines, having big eyes, and stuff like that is like seen as more of the beauty standard. Growing up was a little rough. The whole like light skin thing was like really impressed upon me by like the Nepali society. Just like learning to embrace like things about me that aren't like normally accepted in traditional beauty standards. Like my eyes, like they're kind of small. Most people don't find beautiful, I guess.
Perfect like body image or like standard of beauty for specifically like white women in America is very tall, very thin in the waist with like large breasts and honestly just like having a butt, and it doesn't always make sense. Just like this perfect like hourglass figure is really idealized in our society, but most like white women are not shaped that way.
People are really concerned with having a very, clear complexion, which means no acne, no redness, no scars. And so I feel like we just look up to these, really supermodels who almost have these European standards of beauty as well.
Supermodels like Gigi Hadid or Kendall Jenner are glorified in American society because they're so tall, they're lean, or their complexions are completely clear. These beauty standards are nearly impossible to achieve, and like a lot of them are genetic. Sometimes you can't help, how much acne you're going to get at a certain stage in your life. Sometimes you just have a predisposition for it based on your genetics.
I think especially with the rising of K-pop and like K-pop stars, there's a lot of female in social media that seem to have the perfect body per the Korean standard, which is having like a really thin waist, and their legs are like so stick skinny that you're kind of wondering like where did they even get their pants from, and just having like a really long torso and long legs and having like the perfect torso and length ratio, which is obviously not something that we can choose. I know there's like an ongoing joke where people say like, oh, non-Asians can't really distinguish Asian faces and everyone looks the same. But honestly, even for me, when I look at these like idol groups or like famous celebrities on TV, they all look the same to me. And it's mainly because we have such like a set idea of what beauty looks like that we end up praising the people who look identical.
Something that's really big in the Philippines actually is are whitening products and whitening soaps. Not only is it like a standard of beauty, it's also a standard of wealth and class, and like people vie for that because they're like, oh, I want to have this perception of beauty. I want to be perceived as wealthy. I want to be vied for. But I remember even as a kid, my mom would be buying those soaps. And I remember like I would be like taking a bath and then I'd look at that soap and I'm like, I don't see how this helps. But then she explained to me, oh, it'll help me get that lighter skin. I mean, I was probably like 8 or 10 at that time. I didn't really understand the magnitude of like the concept of beauty, but I just kind of went with it. And just reflecting back maybe like 9 to 11 years later on really like the impact that would have is like crazy.
Like a big thing for me was like finding people that I looked up to that looked similar to me, or like, you know, like we're from the same ethnicity. I think like having like role models is super important. Realizing that beauty comes in like different forms. It doesn't just have to be like physical beauty. It can be like, you know, like your strength or like bravery or like, you know, confidence or whatever it may be. People can embrace their own beauty by redefining the definition of beauty and by finding role models.
Something that I've struggled with is my complexion, having redness, acne, scarring. I would use makeup to sort of hide that. And, you know, American society is, oh, you wear makeup to achieve these beauty looks if you can't get them by yourself. In 5th grade, I got in trouble one day because I put on like this pink eyeshadow. It was like super sparkly. And I was literally in 5th grade and like trying to wear makeup to school because I wanted to be considered beautiful. And I think that's a real problem. Like, that's why I'm not wearing makeup today, because it's like, it's not perfect, but I've learned that just because you don't have a perfect complexion doesn't mean that you can't be considered like beautiful in your society. I think more people need to learn to embrace their own beauty. And I think that comes with realizing that a lot of these expectations put before us are just completely unrealistic, and trying to achieve them is ultimately just going to make us more unhappy.
I think growing up in Korea, I was never like the skinniest kid. I saw other girls in my class that fit more into the standard of what a beautiful girl looks like in Korea, and I would think, oh, like, I think my thighs are too big. I think my waist isn't skinny enough. And I remember in high school being really proud of the fact that I had like a 24-inch waist. And by the time I was graduating from high school, I was like, why does that matter? And a lot of Korean middle and high school students just look at that and think, okay, if I starve myself enough, I'm gonna look like that. And if I don't look like that, then there's something wrong with me, and I'm not like desirable or attractive.